Hey everyone, and welcome to the Fantasy Fullback Dive, brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal, paving your way to fantasy glory, acting as your lead blocker to fantasy X, and all your football-related fantasies come true. I'm your host, Nat the Truth Jones. We have a underwhelming, but at the same time intriguing Thursday night game that we're leading up to, that we're going to have a few words to say on moving in. We had a couple pieces do really, really well on the site this week, so thank you so much for that. Thank you for tuning in. I'm with the Wolf of Roto Street himself, as always. Wolf, how you doing? What do you think about this matchup? I mean, we'll talk about it more in depth in a second, but what's your one sentence thought about this Washington versus Chicago matchup?
Oh, it's hideous. But I mean, Denver versus Chicago last week was hideous, and we saw that game hit 20, I think 5 points over, 55 total points in that one. So could this one do the same? Yes. I just don't think the Commanders' defense is quite as bad as what Denver's. I know they're not quite as bad as Denver. So I don't have a ton of faith that this game actually does shoot out. We can just pull it right up here from the top. I know you said one sentence, but ultimately,
no.
Through this real fast. I like the Commanders to just wash the Bears. I do not love Justin Fields after his bounce back. I think right at the top, you've already written about him this week, and I thought your advice was pretty spot on. He had a great game. Time to sell, because I do not see this offense as a whole getting better. Even though he had a great game, it was on the back of his arm as well, which is not typically how Justin Fields gets his points. He still didn't have a ton of design runs. They still turtled in their shell by the end of that game. So I'm with you. I think it was a sell week for Justin Fields if anybody could have actually bought him. But ultimately, I like the Commanders to wash the Bears here. I think the Commanders are actually a pretty solid team, and I take the under of the 44.5 because I think the Commanders will put their points up, but I don't have any faith in the Bears tonight.
All right, if we're getting into a little more of the specifics, and we do actually have 2 super chats that we're going to hit, but since you're already talking about the game, I'm going to give my couple comments on the game, and then we'll hit right the super chats, and we'll get right into it.
Thank you guys so much. Sorry, I didn't mean to skip that line.
Yeah, we already got 2
on the site. We'll get right to it.
We already got 2. Also, give us a quick thumbs up. That would be awesome. Whereas the Wolf said it would mean the world. That's become one of your catchphrases.
It does mean the world.
I know it does. I mean, it's
I'm growing out to more people. We're growing our world, baby. Hell yeah.
At the same time, it's extremely appropriate. So my thoughts on this game, I agree with you. It's it's a battle between 2 pretty terrible teams. However, they have a common opponent, and that's the Denver Broncos, and that's where everything always seems to come back to. And so if you look at those, you could see the potential for some actual real action here. Washington and Denver, I believe, was 38-35 Washington in overtime. And the Bears and Denver was 31-28, maybe also in overtime, but I'm not sure if that one actually went to overtime. But
winning field goal on that.
The point is, a lot of points were scored in both of those games. Now, granted, the Denver defense does tend to lend itself to a lot of points being scored, but the Denver offense also scored tons of points in both of those games, which kind of makes me think we could be looking at a lot of points in this game. I would definitely be pushing the over in this one. Okay. Commanders giving up 6 is probably the right play. I guess I agree with you, but I could see this going way over.
I hope it does. I mean, obviously that makes for an exciting fantasy night. There are some fantasy plays we'll talk about after our super chats that I think you can certainly toss in the lineups. It's not a completely irrelevant Thursday night football game by any means. I just think that common denominator that you're mentioning is the Denver Broncos defense. They are just that much worse than the Commanders. And so, yes, I think their offense is a little bit more high powered. The Broncos can keep pace with Sean Payton at the helm here with any team as they're surrendering a ton of points. I don't want to use that as a measuring bar because I worry that the Commanders will be a lot more stifling to this Bears team.
I cannot let that comment that you just said go about Denver being able to keep pace with any offense. We just saw them win 70-20 like 2 weeks ago. So that is not accurate. They can keep pace with
I shouldn't say any offense, but the shitty teams like this.
They can keep pace with Washington, yes. But this Denver offense they're not that guy. Anyway,
no, they're not.
But they're not awful. They're not awful.
Yes.
I will grant you that.
Fair enough.
All right, let's get into the super chats. This is from Kristen, man. She sent this in, well before showtime. We're talking almost an hour before the scheduled time, and we were even late from that. So she's been waiting a while. She threw us $10. Thanks so much. She's like, "Hey Wolf, I got some tough decisions this week. PPR, Fields or Stroud. Why don't you hit that one first? Fields or Stroud?"
I got to go Stroud. I think this floor is just so much safer. 3 straight top 12 weeks. I mean, I believe at this point, tied for the most passing yards in the NFL through his first 4 starts. The kid's like a stud, and his line is only getting healthier. He's been playing behind this mismatched offensive line. So when Daniel Jones is getting the constant, the line sucks. Yeah, it does. There's no doubt about that. But Stroud's making it work with his second string offensive line right now. The floor is so much higher with him. Nico Collins, Tank Dell. They're just all getting it done. And this is an ascending offense. I just feel so much better. I know Fields coming off that best game. It's tough to bench. But like I was saying at the top, when he got the majority of those points through his arm, I do not bank on that happening consistently this year, really ever throughout his career. So had he been just let loose and running all over the field, and yeah, Fields is back, I would have felt much better about recommending him. But I do not feel great about Fields doing that again this week. I think this pass defense of the Commanders, not great, certainly better, certainly more serviceable than that of the Broncos. And the big difference is they can actually get after the passer too. The Commanders have a great front seven, good D-line. So I do not love Fields tonight. Certainly not compared to Stroud, who I am in love with. Top 10 quarterback. We're going to talk about him a bit later. But yeah, I am so in on Stroud and what he's doing right now.
Read my article on Roto Street Journal. The more research I did, the more I agree with the Wolves' take here. Tight end, Waller or Ertz. Man, I got to tell you, Wolf, there's no player that I have enjoyed owning less this year than Darren Waller.
It's so bad.
I spent like $21 on him in an auction.
Yeah. All the hype, he's going to be a target hog, a wide receiver one at the tight end position. I bought it. I was all in on this Giants offense. We all know. Sure. They are pure ass. The tough part is like Zach Ertz isn't much better than pure ass.
No, he's really not.
He is leading the league right now in tight end target share. Honestly, I mean, he has the higher floor here. I still think Waller, they're facing Miami. It's not a great defense, certainly not against the tight end. And they're going to need points. So famous last words against putting Waller back in the lineups. Ertz has the floor here. I still think Waller, and all the words are so far, and he's my lower tight end of the week. I'll already give it away when we get to higher, lower Hail Mary. I'm lower on Waller by 5 spots than the ECR. He's the tight end 5. I just think Ertz has such little upside, even though he is seeing 8 targets a game. There's doing absolutely nothing with him. And so unless this is full PPR? It is full PPR. Okay.
Full PPR.
So you know what? Full PPR, I actually do lean Ertz. Half PPR, I might go for the upside of Waller finally putting it together. Full PPR, though, you're going to get some decent work here from Zach Ertz. Like I said, 25% target share at the position. That's the highest among tight ends. As baffling as that is, why this 35-year-old corpse is getting 8 to 10 targets regularly. I can't explain why, but he's going to at least haul in. So yeah, 10, 8. He had that one game with 2 targets, a dud, but then 10 targets last week. He's had 6 catches or more in 3 out of his 4 games here. So that's just a touchdown in a full PPR league. And ultimately, 50 yards and a touchdown, I would take that for my tight end all day. So I'm actually going Ertz here, given that full PPR setting, Kristen.
You're thinking about this way too much. The answer is Ertz. That's it. RB2 and flex. And she's got a bunch of names here. Mostert, Pacheco, Breece Hall, Jalen Warren. The other flex options would be Jahan Dotson, obviously not, or Robert Woods.
Obviously not as well. So not one of the receivers. I do like Breece Hall a lot. The training wheels are off. There's no touch limit. And, he's facing the Broncos. We don't need to say much more about that and how abysmal that defense is. What did they give up? 70 combined fantasy points? No, it was more than that. I think it was 90 combined points to the Denver back. The Denver did to the Miami.
It was like 95.
Yeah, exactly. But actually, you know what, though? You look at this list, Mostert, I know he's coming off the dud week. I know this is Achan's backfield now. To me, this one actually comes down to
he's the overall RB2. You can't bench him.
It's so hard to bench that, but only 4 points last week. To me, this one will actually come down to it crazy that this would be a deciding factor here. But if Jeff Wilson is activated this week, I really could see him being that goal line back. That would worry me if Mostert loses that goal line work. That's what's really helped buoy him. So if he's losing the early down work to Devin Achan, if Wilson's back and he steals some touchdowns, I think Mostert could be in a really tough spot. Pacheco, meanwhile, gets that Minnesota defense that's been actually pretty good against running backs, but we saw DeAndre Swift run all over them. Pacheco's gone, in back-to-back weeks. I almost had him as my lower. And then I was just looking like he's getting more and more snaps with Pat Mahomes last week, about 60% of the snaps. And we saw him just thriving the more and more work he's getting right now. Ultimately went up to 15, then 23 fantasy points in back-to-back weeks. I have a hard time benching Pacheco over Mostert at this point. And I have a hard time benching Breece with no training wheels against the Denver Broncos defense. I think I'm benching Mostert, honestly. As
Okay.
scary as that seems, like you said, the running back 2 in fantasy, it's got to be 2 of those 3. I'm
Sure.
leaning going Pacheco and Brees. What about you, Truth?
I would probably lean and possibly. I mean, I would go Brees, of course, and I would probably wince and take Mostert just because it's like, okay, the guy had one bad game. I get that circumstances have changed. I'm probably rolling him out one more time, but I don't think your Pacheco take is crazy. All right. Let's hit this other one. We took a while on that, and we actually have a pretty large
$10 we're gonna give you our best for every single time. Christian, thank you so much. I know it's not the first time super chatting us. Your generosity, it means so much. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah. So Bulldog, real quick, throwing us 5.
Thank you, Bulldog. Always here.
Wolf, who should I start? Howell, Trevor Lawrence, or Dobbs? Also, should I start Brees over Gibbs this week? Yes, you should start Brees over Gibbs this week.
Yes. So I agree 100% on the Brees over Gibbs. It's David Montgomery's backfield. You know, he was in last week, 3 touchdowns, nearly 70%. It was, 75% of the snaps, too? And Gibbs still looks good. He's right towards the top of the league in broken tackles per attempt. He has all those efficiency metrics banging out there, but we've seen this before. And I don't understand why they spent the capital, why they got rid of Swift, or they're just going to use him in a Swift-light role at this point. But we're just going to follow what the coaches do, not what us fantasy owners want them to do. And right now, you're getting about 25 to 30% of the snaps and work out of Gibbs. Absolutely, I'm going Brees with no touch limit against the worst defense in the league. So, yeah, I'm with you there. I actually play Sam Howell over Trevor Lawrence. So we're going to get more depth on why I don't like Trevor Lawrence.
That leads into our next part. Good. Go ahead.
We're definitely going to go higher, lower Hail Mary. So I don't want to go too in-depth on you, Bulldog. I know you're kind of getting this one in to just make sure, if I have Howell, I put him in tonight or not. I say yes, and I actually like Josh Dobbs more than Trevor Lawrence this week. We have a lot of reasons why, and I'll definitely dig more deeper into that. But the big thing is the matchup against the Bills is brutal. No quarterback, not even Tua, has put up more than 13 fantasy points against that defense. And Trevor Lawrence himself has not had more than 16 points in a single game. I know he's had a couple bad drops and misconnections, and it's not necessarily his fault that his points haven't been there. But at a certain point, we can just keep poking all these holes. I was thinking this earlier. It's like, yeah, Calvin Ridley dropped a touchdown. This guy dropped it. But if it just keeps happening, I get it's not his fault, but it's happening regardless. So I don't love Trevor Lawrence this week. I'm worried about him fantasy-wise. I know he's like PFF's top 5 passer and all that stuff, but that doesn't get us fantasy points. He had that 1 QB8 finish in Indianapolis in week 1. He hasn't been higher than quarterback 16 since then, and he hasn't really had tough matchups either. So I do not like Trevor Lawrence this week, no.
Okay, fair enough. And actually, part of what the Wolf was just talking about leads nicely into there's really only
that's kind of why I was saving this too.
Yeah. There's really only 2 guys that the Wolf is much interested in this game. That's Sam Howell's potential as a streamer. Obviously, he had a really good start to the year against some pretty abysmal defenses. I believe it was the Cardinals and the Broncos. But I mean, he had a lot of fantasy points, had 3 passing touchdowns. He had a rushing touchdown. Then he played a good defense. We saw what this defense did to the unstoppable Dolphins. Held them, just made them look terrible in this game. But in that game that Howell played against the Bills was one of the worst games I've just about ever seen somebody play. He had a pick in every quarter. He had a pick in every quarter. You don't see that much. So, it is, I guess, take that for whatever it's worth. But anyway, that's what I'm going to say on it. Wolf, what do you want to elaborate on as far as Sam Howell's viability as a streamer tonight?
Well, I think that also leads into nicely that he did face another good defense in the Eagles, and he went punch for punch with them, 19 fantasy points yet again after averaging that to kick off his year. He had 40 rushing yards on the day, starting to get more involved with the leg points, which we know he has. He had over 1,000 rushing yards over his 3rd college season. I mean, the guy can absolutely get it done on the ground despite lackluster, yards, speed there. And then you got Eric Bieniemy. They're letting the kids sling it. They're top 5 in pass rate over expectation right now. The receivers seem to be waking up. McLaurin, an 8 and 80-yard day the other week. Dotson finally getting into the end zone last week. So it's good to see them start waking up. But you also have to factor in this is against the Bears, the 2nd most points allowed to quarterbacks. They are absolute trash. And I think when you dig a little deeper into that too, part of why I love this matchup against the Bears is they are 30th in pressure rate. Now, Sam Howell, he has been taking horrendous sacks. He's the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. And some of them are definitely on his fault. He's holding the ball too long. I think he's going to have all day to just stand back there. This Bears D-line is one of the worst in the league. As again, 30th in pressure rate. They are bottom 2 in that. And so I do think he's going to have a much more productive day with that time there. Just moving I think this defense is going to bury them and just go marching up and down the field at will. They have the 7th highest implied total on the slate. And I just think it's a great spot for Sam Howell. He's a top 12 quarterback for me. If you're missing Justin Herbert, you're missing that. And I do really like Josh Dobbs. He's my other Hail Mary of the week. But I think Sam Howell, I feel quite a bit better about just with the matchup tonight. I think it's beautiful.
Last guy we're going to mention before we get into news of the week and injuries and stuff like that. Khalil Herbert, 18 rushes for 103 yards, including 4 catches for 19 yards. You say, hey, wow, that's awesome. Who is he playing? Well, we're going to just keep beating this dead horse. He was playing the Denver Broncos. So, there's probably like a mathematical equation you could punch in, like, you can expect to increase your stats like 150% if you're playing the Broncos. So, these are inflated numbers, but they were still pretty solid. That's the game he's coming off. He did enjoy right around, I feel like it was a 75% snap count advantage over Rashawn Johnson, who is everybody's kind of darling. Oh, he's going to take over the backfield. It didn't happen. Yeah.
And you know what, Truth? Speaking of mathematical equations, fantasy points, our good friends over there, they have a stat called schedule adjusted points, and it tells you what % more you can expect your running back or whatever position. So running back, Denver, you can expect plus 92.4% more points than what they're typically going to score. They're actually number 2 on that.
So double.
So basically. Double, yeah. You can expect double your output. But you know what's even crazier than that? Number 1 on that list, Chicago, plus 130%. So yes, Brian Robinson, 100%. You didn't need me to encourage you to start this guy. He's going to have 2 touchdowns tonight. Going to be an absolute stud. But when we're talking like showdown, who should be my captain? It should probably be Brian Robinson. The guy is going to absolutely destroy this team. Like I said, I think they have a huge lead. Perfectly game flow for him. But yeah, Denver plus 92.4% for running back position. So that helps to do that math for you. So yeah, that is out there. But speaking of
somebody actually did the thing that I thought would be cool already. What a surprise.
Yes, exactly. Right. But back to Khalil Herbert, because I have gotten a bunch of sit-start questions on him in the DMs and all that good stuff. I have a hard time benching him. I get that this matchup's significantly harder. But what I'm looking at is the fact that he played 77% of the snaps, ran 65% of the routes. That's an elite mark for a running back. 78% of the running back carries there this week. And as you mentioned, a dominant performance. It was a top 10 running back and fantasy points per game. And I feel like fantasy owners, we have this kind of tendency that we always want that exciting young back to be the next guy in. And Khalil Herbert just last year was the guy we constantly were clamoring. Get him in over David Montgomery. Look how efficient this guy is. And now that he's getting the opportunity and playing well for it, we still just want Rashawn Johnson. I'm not following myself in that bucket. I love Khalil Herbert.
By the way,
contact, efficiency metrics. This is the role we wanted to see him in all last year. He's got it, and he's performing very well, and yet we still continue to clamor for Rashawn Johnson. It makes no sense to me. I really do like this role for him. I know the matchup's tougher, but I have him 3 spots above the ECR, Khalil Herbert, right at the fringe of RB2. I have him at 22 right now. I like the kid. I think after his showing last week, there seems to be a higher comfort level with him, and I don't think the Commanders, yes, I talked about how I think this defense will give them much more trouble. So that is the reason why I'm a little bit hesitant on him. But as long as he keeps, the one worry here is earlier in the season, Rashawn was kind of that if they get game flowed out, he became that pass catching back, the garbage time back if they were getting really blown out. That could happen tonight. There is a risk that does happen. But after Khalil Herbert's big game last week, I think they're going to continue to try to establish him. And I think he's a fringe RB2 that you can start this week if you need be. So let me know in the comments if you have Khalil Herbert questions. I will be happy to answer them. But I think I'm a bit higher on him, and a lot of people are recommending to bench him this week. And it depends on who your other guy is. But I have some leagues where I'd definitely be considering firing him up.
With that noted, the interesting thing about how you felt about Herbert last year, and now you're feeling the same way about Rashawn Johnson and all that stuff.
I don't personally,
but meanwhile, community. At the same time, it's also funny to note that David Montgomery is doing exactly the same thing to somebody else.
Exactly.
And he's great. You can't argue with Montgomery's performance. He's been awesome.
Exactly.
All right, quarterbacks. Let's get into news for Week 5. Kenny Pickett, knee injury. That was that game was not going well for the Steelers at all. Then this happened. He was upgraded to a full participant on Thursday in practice. He's got one more practice to go in the week. He's going to need to get upgraded to, to see action he hasn't looked great this year, but I'm still pretty sure that he's the best guy they got right now. I don't have a ton of faith in Mitch Trubisky, who I think is their backup. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully he'll be back, but we don't know yet for sure.
Yeah, it's ugly whoever's back there. I guess it's just a little less ugly if it's Kenny Pickett. But
maybe.
And on another quarterback note, that probably won't matter for you. Jimmy Garoppolo still in concussion protocol. I was actually pretty impressed with this Aiden O'Connell kid. I know he didn't end up leading the win, but he kept them competitive. He kept slinging it. So I think ultimately whether Garoppolo plays or not is largely irrelevant. We got the Devontae Adams revenge game on the docket. I think Aiden O'Connell can continue to sling that rock for him. The only one that was truly impacted seemed to be Jacoby Myers. So just keeping tabs on that for his value and his startability this week.
Saquon Barkley still dealing with that ankle injury. He was expected to be limited in today's practice. I'm assuming that was the case. This really looks like it could come down to a true game time decision heading into the game with the Dolphins. We know what the Dolphins are all about. They're coming off a pretty embarrassing loss. We just saw the Bears in action, and it was, I'm not exaggerating, it was one of the worst performances I've just about ever seen by a football team. And I saw Denver.
The Giants? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Giants.
I think they're the Bears, just making sure.
Huh? Oh, no. I mean, the game that the Giants just had was one of the worst games I've ever seen a football team play. And I've seen Denver give up 70 points this year. And the Giants looked so awful. Without Barkley, forget about it. I mean, their offensive line already isn't very good. I believe this game, whether Barkley plays or not, is going to be a true pounding from the Dolphins. But we probably won't know if Barkley's going to be involved until the day of the game.
Yeah, if he's in, though, obviously you're firing up Barkley, no matter how lopsided this game can get. He's truly game flow proof, and they're not good against running backs, so we will find out. Jonathan Taylor seems to be trending towards a return. He says it feels really good to be healthy. And then when they asked, are you committed to the Colts? He just said if somebody wasn't committed, they wouldn't be here. Now, he hasn't really directly said, I'm so excited to be here.
He didn't say yes.
There was no yes involved in that answer, but at least it sounds like he's going to be giving it a go. Now, this isn't the best of spots to be walking back onto the field for. We know the Titans talked about it every single week pretty much. They're the ultimate pass funnel, one of the best run defenses in the league, one of the worst pass defenses. So it's not the best of spots for Taylor to be returning to, but we've seen how this team can just mow through the defenses right now with Anthony Richardson. He opens up those cutback lanes, a little bit of less goal line equity when Anthony Richardson's in there, but the offense as a whole has been pretty damn solid. We know they're top 5 in plays run. So I think Taylor could be walking into it. Like we said, Zach Moss has been a top 12 running back over his 3 starts. Yeah. Jonathan Taylor could certainly walk right back into an RB1 performance. Given all the bye weeks this week, honestly, I would have no hesitancy just tossing him right back into my lineup in most cases. I'm plus 12 ECR. Even in the tough matchup against the Titans, we're getting questions about Chuba Hubbard. Yes, you get Jonathan Taylor back in your lineup if that's your other option here. Come on.
Yeah, not to keep plugging my pieces. I wrote a piece on Taylor last week that the Wolf actually helped touch up and contributed to also that did really well. If you want a more extended argument for why you should be A, getting this guy, or B, rolling him out if you're lucky enough to have him, read it. I think we touch on a lot of good stuff. Chargers running back Austin Eckler. Maybe you've heard of him. Ankle issue. He's been out for a while. He says he thinks he's going to be back for week 6 against the Cowboys.
You got to be licking your chops when he comes back too. No Mike Williams here anymore. They're going to need him as much as they can. And I as an Austin Eckler owner, cannot wait to have him back in my lineup. That's for damn sure. We talked about this earlier, given the questions around him, but Breece Hall, no more restrictions on his workload. The training wheels are off. He has looked damn explosive when he's gotten the rock. Although I did see a crazy stat where it's like his first 2 carries of the season went for 109 yards. His 30 carries since are just at 100. So, it's crazy, but that's kind of part of the game with him is he hasn't had that chance to establish himself, get going. What better spot than against the Denver Broncos? If you have Breece Hall, you got to be licking your chops and having him in your lineup.
Speaking of the Broncos, Javonte Williams returned to practice on Thursday. Remember, he had that, I think it was a hip flexor, they said, although they got it listed here as quad. And I love the first line of this copy. That crying sound you hear in the background is everyone who blew their fab on Jaleel McLaughlin less than 24 hours ago. We still don't know the extent of this injury, so maybe a little premature to be crying. And to be fair, we knew that this was an injury going in that would probably not see Williams missing much time, if any at all. McLaughlin still got upside, but it looks like pretty good bet that Williams is going to be back on the field in some capacity on Sunday.
Possibly. I would still monitor this one. I think Williams they could take it easy with him. And
Sure.
Either way, Jaleel McLaughlin, he's the hand-picked guy here by Sean Payton. Sean Payton has only gushed about him. We're going to talk a little bit more about Jaleel McLaughlin, but even if Williams does suit up, I expect McLaughlin to outplay him, outscore him, outtouch him. I'm a big fan of McLaughlin. We'll dive into him a little bit later. Aaron Jones, limited in practice. He gets the Raiders this week. They're allowing 25 points per game right now. They are an abysmal defense. So Aaron Jones, snap count last week, it killed a lot of people, but I think you have to go right back to the well. I can't imagine he's going to be limited like that on a Monday night matchup here. They need a win.
Miles Sanders has a groin issue and was limited in Thursday's practice. This falls squarely under the category of I don't care as far as anything like that goes. It says right here that, there's a decent chance that just the competition from Chuba Hubbard ends up keeping him off the field just as much as the groin injury. There's a decent chance he will play in week 5, but I cannot imagine rolling Miles Sanders out.
I know you got to look at some of these teams that are on buys and desperation time. It's like Sanders will start running back, right? And then I look at it and I still say no. And we're going to talk about why in a little bit. Elijah Mitchell not practicing. Welcome back, Christian McCaffrey, the God. Yeah. He already was God, but we've seen it in games where Eli Mitchell hasn't played. He's logged just about 100% of the snaps. We've seen 100% of the snaps. Last week, right around 95% and 50 points. I mean, McCaffrey, it's beautiful. Obviously, the matchup's a little tougher this week against the Cowboys, but he's a monster. You know that. It's just more for his value. And maybe Jordan Mason becomes that handcuff stash Sunday Night Football ahead of the game. You cut a bench guy that's not doing anything for you. You stash Jordan Mason just in case, because this thing's kind of lingering right now for Eli Mitchell.
Amon-Ra, we're moving on to wide receivers now. Amon-Ra St. Brown dealing with an abdomen issue. He did not practice on Thursday, which is back-to-back missed practices for Amon-Ra, which is never great. Dan Campbell says there's no guarantee he's going to be playing in week 5 against the Panthers. Obviously, Josh Reynolds, a low-end wide receiver. If he doesn't play, his value goes way up. Is Jameson Williams back this week?
Expected to be back. Okay. And on Amon-Ra's podcast, talking to David Montgomery, they're like, you saw a couple of those plays in practice, right? This kid's got the juice right now. And I mean, he really does. You talked about him. You wrote about him too. Game record, over 1,500 yards and 19 touchdowns on like 79. The kid can destroy games. I know he hasn't done it at the NFL level quite yet, but all the hype in training camp about Jameson Williams working with Calvin Johnson, expanding his route tree, being a much more complete, unguardable guy. Especially if St. Brown misses this game, he becomes right onto your streaming radar. Yeah, I'd like to wait a game and see, but honestly, if you bid all the fab to go get this guy, and even if St. Brown plays, like there's definite long bump. He has one NFL catch, and I think you know what it was.
41-yard touchdown.
Exactly. So, I mean, we know the upside is there with him. You don't need me to spell out the upside for Cooper Kupp. No. He looks healthy. He went through a normal practice on Wednesday. It seems all but certain he's going to be returning. Could he get snap counted? Maybe. But they played this one safe. They kept him on the 4-game IR. I think he's going to be Cooper Kupp. And either way, if Cooper Kupp's on the field, I don't even care if it's a snap count. You're playing him. Puka Nacua, you're still playing him too. I saw a funny one. I think it was our guy Ian Hartitz that tweeted out Puka Nacua seeing Cooper Kupp back in the locker room, and it was the Step Brothers clip where he's like, hey. And then Will Ferrell's like, hey, they're standing in the yard, just kind of sizing each other up, Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly. That was perfect. It captured it great. But those guys can absolutely thrive together. No reason not to. And this Eagles secondary has been really bad all year. Great in the front seven, but I have no worries starting all my pass catchers against that defense at all.
Yeah, I know it was just meant to be funny, and maybe I'm kidding myself. I feel like Nacua and Kupp are going to coexist really well. Maybe I'm kidding myself, and maybe it will be more like a Step Brothers thing. But I think the sky's the limit there, man. I really do.
Yeah, I do too.
Deebo Samuel, he practiced on Thursday, and basically, its general consensus is he's going to be playing, but he's going to be playing at less than 100% against the Cowboys in Week 5, which actually should be a pretty interesting matchup.
Yeah, I can't wait for that Sunday night game. One of the best we've seen this year. So I'm pumped for it. But, yeah, I'm a bit worried about Deebo. We'll dive into him in more detail later, but he's approaching that lower list for sure this week. T. Higgins, sideline for the practice. One of the biggest busts of this 2023 season so far has to be T. Higgins, late second, early third pick. The whole Bengals offense, really, it's not just T, but he certainly has not helped himself. It doesn't seem like he's going to end up playing. Does make Tyler Boyd maybe a streamer, but again, do you really want to bank on this offense on anybody outside of Jamar Chase and maybe Joe Mixon? Nope. I don't really want to, even in a great spot against the Cardinals. So, I'm worried. I'm certainly worried about him and this entire offense long term.
Christian Watson was limited in Thursday's practice. We actually saw him make his debut last week against the Lions, but just like he was limited in practice, he was clearly limited in the game. He ran like a route on 47% of Packers dropbacks. He did catch 2 out of the 4 balls thrown his way for 25, and he did get a touchdown, which was nice, kept his feet in bounds. That was nice to see him get on the board. Obviously, the workload should increase a little more in week 5, but I'm not too excited yet.
I am.
I know you are. I knew you would.
Bad defense. I'm very excited to see what the kids got. We've seen 12 and 13 targets go Romeo Dobbs' way. I don't think he disappears by any means. I think he's still very startable. I have a trade I want to run by you, Truth, that I executed today, but I don't want to waste our users' time. So once we hang up, I'm going to tell you this one. I think I absolutely murdered it, but we will talk about that one for sure. I still think Dobbs is very playable, but I think Christian Watson has his coming out party on Monday night, so he's one I'm on this week for sure. Zay Jones, limited in practice. Why does it matter? Well, Christian Kirk's become a 90% route runner that past time. Remember in week 1 when Zay Jones was healthy, Christian Kirk was only about a 50% snap player. So I don't think that it matters at this point because Kirk has been just so damn good in Zay Jones' absence. I don't imagine he's going to go back to that half role, but he was kind of exclusively a slot guy. So it'll be interesting to see how this one ends up playing out. But Zay is looking like he's going to return to the field, and I don't think it's going to matter against the Bills anyways.
Rashad Bateman dealing with a hamstring issue. He is listed as a full participant on Thursday. OBJ, also dealing with an injury and ankle on his part, was listed as a limited participant on Thursday. Honestly, it's tough to get too excited about either one of these guys right now. I mean, they've done nothing. I believe OBJ has missed the last 2 games. It looks likely that he could miss another game. Neither one of them's done anything. So neither one of them's going to be in my lineup, even if they play.
No, Pittsburgh has given up a ton of points to wide receivers. So Joe Collins did last week. Just a matter of like how much do they eat into Zay Flowers' workload is really all this matters. You're not playing either of those guys, but do they eat into the workload that you can't trust Zay? I don't think so. I think you can definitely keep Zay Flowers in your lineups. I think he'll knife right through that defense with no problem. But wanted to mention those guys either way. Last receiver note is Wan'Dale Robinson practicing on Thursday. I know. Actually, we had a great comment. I did a Wan'Dale clip from our waiver wire. And the first comment on it, yay, what I've always wanted, a Giants wide receiver. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that's a perfect comment. I get it. I know why nobody would want to know anything about Wan'Dale or this Giants receiving core. But he, since been returning, 11 targets, 9 catches, 61 yards, and he only played about 20% of the routes in his first game. He had 5 targets right away on only 11 routes, played 63%. The role is kind of going up. I don't know that you necessarily play him yet, but I think he's an intriguing stash heading into Sunday football. If there's going to be somebody that emerges with some value, that high percentage, they need to get that ball out quickly. I could see him becoming one of those guys that catches like 6 balls every single week. PPR leagues, at least, definitely should be on your radar. And he's still out there in 85% of leagues right now. I think Wan'Dale's worth at least checking for. Not starting, Truth. I'm not saying starting. I'm saying at least just putting him on the bench for a little tryout. Let's see how he does. They're going to keep ramping that workload up. It's been a valuable role in the past. I'm going to talk about it more later.
Do you use your subtle powers of reasoning to suspect that I was a little lukewarm on that?
Yeah, I wonder how
you managed to pick that up. All right, before we get into tight ends real fast, NC Firearms just threw a couple bucks our way.
Oh, sweet.
And he just really quick, you keep Xing my banner out, Wolf.
My fault.
It's okay. He just wants to know real quick, should you start Christian Kirk or Calvin Ridley, and which one do I let go of? I actually think that's a really interesting question.
Why do you have to let go of either? I like them both.
Well, right. I wouldn't want to dump either of them, but which one would you start tonight in a vacuum?
So neither are playing tonight, so you don't have to worry about that.
I mean Sunday.
But it's always got to be Calvin Ridley. The ceiling is just too high. I know Kirk's been a little bit steadier, more target share each and every week. And maybe it's the fault of mine, but I'm clinging to that week 1 game where you Ridley saw 35% of the targets, was getting wide open at will, was making these high degree difficult catches where chemistry was involved. And to me, he is the one that could be a true alpha. Maybe he fades into it just becomes what it has been these last couple of weeks, just to kind of mismatch. And Kirk is the consistent guy over the middle in the dink and dunk game. But we saw it from Ridley. And that one glimpse to me was too much that I could never let him go. I know he's definitely been downgraded these last couple of weeks. It's still Calvin Ridley. I still think he's a great player. I still think that chemistry can get built. I am worried about both these guys against the Bills, though. I do not have a ton of faith in anybody against the Bills, but if it's one or the other, Tre'Davious White getting dinged up, he's going to be done. It looks like maybe for the season. I don't remember the exact diagnosis on that, but especially he's not going to be there this week. He's a huge cog in that defense that Calvin Ridley will not have to face this week now.
I mean, I agree with your assessment, and I know we both touched on this at the beginning. I would not want to be letting go of either of these guys. I might like Ridley more than Kirk overall, but I have Kirk on my team, and I'm very happy to have him there. He's a very steady and reliable, maybe 10-point a game guy, which is awesome. Yeah. All right, let's move on to tight ends, and then we're going to get into higher, lower Hail Mary, and then hopefully spend a decent time on the mailbag. Pat Freiermuth, hamstring issue. He didn't practice on Thursday, and basically they said earlier in the week he's going to miss 2 to 3 weeks. Given the bye week that's coming up in week 6, he might just miss this week, and then if his injury rehab goes well, we could see him back right after the bye week.
Yeah, whatever at this point. It's tight end. Daniel Jones, it's important to make Darren Waller a bigger part of the offense.
Just stop.
Yeah, don't even read it. It's crazy because he's 4th among tight ends in targets, and ultimately still doesn't matter.
How is that possible? How is that even a thing?
I know. But hey, whatever. It was news at tight end. I had to toss it in there.
I'm just giving you a hard time. I'm just so disgusted with him, and it's like, I'm glad.
3 points, baby.
What I noticed about Daniel Jones,
put it out, though.
I did notice that Waller was open several times, and what I noticed about Jones, and I don't know if this is just a deficiency in him as a quarterback or the fact that his line was basically like Swiss cheese, and he had to get rid of the ball immediately. He was not going through any sort of progression. He was he was throwing to the first guy. And if he had to look to the other side of the field, and that's where Waller was, there was a 0% chance Waller was getting that ball. Yeah. So that's what I took away from it. All right. Luke Musgraves cleared the concussion protocol. He's going to be active for week 5 against the Raiders. Again, we're talking tight ends here. The bar is so low right now. I still think Waller's I'm pretty sure Waller's like a top 8 tight end or something like that. And I mean, he's scoring like 4 points, 5 points a game. So any of these guys, it's like ducks in a barrel. Who knows? But it does look like a pretty good sign for Musgraves to be playing in the next game.
There you go. And I like him too. We'll talk about more why I like him in a little bit. But we want to get to your questions, so I'm going to try to mow through this higher, lower Hail Mary as quickly as I can, while still hopefully prompting some questions from you when you hear some of these names. That's why we do it. We also have to preview, give our takes for the week as well. So if you don't mind that thumbs up button, it means the world, as I always say, as the truth loves to hear me say. It really does help us grow.
It means the world.
If you consider subscribing. We'll definitely have the sit starts going on Sunday as well after this. So we'll have a good solid 40 minutes or so for sit starts in just a little bit. But let's dive in at this point.
All right. So going at quarterbacks right now, you got 2 guys. You got Brock Purdy against Dallas, and you got CJ Stroud at Atlanta. You got Purdy as your number 8 guy, which is 9 spots above the ECR, and that's a very significant hire. I like it when you do those. And then Stroud, you got him at QB 9, 4 higher than the experts. Also significant in that he's a fringe starter according to the experts, and you like him as a solid starter. But the Purdy one, much bigger discrepancy. Talk about those guys real quick.
I mean, 10-23 have that one kind of quote-unquote dud with 15 points. That's his low on the year. Then 20 and 21, back-to-back 20-point days, quarterback 13 and quarterback 11. So has he crossed into where I have him right now at quarterback 9? No, but I think actually this Dallas defense, it is phenomenal. I get it, but they've been swallowing up Mac Jones and Daniel Jones, and even Josh Dobbs had a 20-point day against this defense. I think the San Fran's a different beast than anything Dallas has faced with Travion Diggs out now. I think Trayvon Diggs, that's a big absence that we haven't really seen them feel quite yet. I think this line won't neutralize Micah Parsons, but certainly better than anything they faced yet. And Purdy just has 2 touchdowns or more in all but one start, not just this year, but every start he's ever made, and he's won them all as well in the regular season. I'm a huge fan of this Purdy kid. The weapons around him are such beastly. And I actually think the fact that they're facing a good team on the other side raises the bar, raises the ceiling, because they can't just bleed the clock for the final entire second half. I love Brock Purdy in this spot. I am not scared of the Dallas Cowboys in this matchup. I think it actually kind of helps him in a weird, sneaky way. And then you mentioned CJ Stroud. Atlanta, nothing overly scary as a defense, and 21, 21, and 22 fantasy points across his last 3 games, has been a top 12 quarterback for every single one of those weeks with, again, 384, 280, and 306 yards in those 3 games while playing behind a makeshift line that's only getting healthier right now, only getting better chemistry with his weapons. It's just so fun to be part of it's your fantasy team, but to you see this offense growing and have that be your guy as your leader, your locker room guy. I love CJ Stroud. I love what this kid's doing. And I think he's easily a top 12 quarterback, and he's ranked outside of it right now. So give me CJ Stroud and give me Brock Purdy, two of the higher floor with solid ceiling guys this week, in my opinion.
It's so funny that you refer to being part of the process of watching him grow, because it's so stupid, and I totally get it.
It's my boy out there. I'm so
proud. Oh yeah, we talk about we literally talk about stabilizing influences in our locker rooms like they're a real thing, because I genuinely believe that they are, even though of course they're not. All right, lower, got 2 guys again. Trevor Lawrence at Buffalo. You got him all the way down at 17. For some reason, the experts like him at 10, which I really don't get. And then this one only significant in 2 quarterback leagues. You've got Daniel Jones at 19. The experts like him at 14. I don't know how both these rankings by the experts make no sense to me. So I don't know. Get into it.
No. Trevor Lawrence, we'll start with him. He's ahead of both those guys, CJ Stroud and Brock Purdy, in the expert ranking. Makes 0 sense to me. He's getting a Buffalo team that has not allowed more than 13 fantasy points to quarterbacks. And yeah, you might say, well, Wolf, they've only faced Zach Wilson, Jimmy Garoppolo, Sam Howell, and the leading MVP candidate in Tua last week. They completely stifled him, 13 points. Now they're expected to get Von Miller back on defense just to boost that pass rush even further. And as we talked about when we were going through some of the news, Trevor Lawrence, he's had that one solid game in week 1. He hasn't even hit 20 points yet. 19 was his season high, quarterback 8 there. And then 9, 15, and 16, 32, 19, and 16 quarterback finish these last 3 weeks. He hasn't been anything special, and you can blame everything else you want, but it hasn't been great. This is his worst matchup yet. I do not like Trevor Lawrence at all this week, especially compared to, again, those names like CJ Stroud and Brock Purdy we talked about. And then, Daniel Jones, somehow the quarterback 14, which might give people the impression you can start this guy. How could you possibly do so? They have the lowest passing game average, 110 yards passing on the season so far. They have the most sacks other than Sam Howell at this point. Maybe I think actually those 11 sacks pushed him over the edge, Daniel Jones, this last week. In Miami, not a good defense, probably going to need to chase points. And yet they can get after the passer at an okay clip. So no way you can trust Daniel Jones. It has been so abysmal that he's played one good half of football against Arizona, and it was a 32-point half. He put up a ton, and it showed you that, when everything clicks, maybe this guy can score you those points in bunches. Other than that, 6, 5, and 11 fantasy points, though, it is so bad. I don't know how anybody can have this guy as a fringe QB1. It makes 0 sense to me. Lowest pass yards, lowest total points as a team.
Come on.
They're averaging, 11 points as a team per game right now?
That sounds about right. That's about the eye test. Let me say 2 things. First of all, remember when I had to talk you down from your predictions for Daniel Jones for the year?
Oh God, I know. So bad.
I should have gone harder at you. Second of all, you talked about how he's basically played one good quarter of football this year. I was lucky enough to text you right before that quarter and talk shit to you a little, and then you came back with, it looks like he is pretty awesome. And it's
Anything else to say over here?
I tended to I walked into the one punch that he's thrown all year, basically.
Josh Dobbs, that one uppercut.
I know you did get me on that one. That's one of those where you're just like, God damn. Josh Dobbs against Cincinnati, 19% roster. That's your Hail Mary.
Yeah, absolutely. Over 20 points in 2 of his last 3, 17 in the other one. Quarterback 5 and 8 in those 2 20-point days. And the big thing has been 41, 55, and 48 rush yards with an increase in rushes every single week. 3, then 6, then 12. He's got some little Konami juice. Last week's game of 23 points, he had 2 receivers drop touchdowns at the end of that game. Should have been 27 points. Would have been a top 3 quarterback had either of those guys hauled that in. He's been just really, really solid in the spot. Against Cincy is not bad at all. They have been a much worse secondary without Bates over there, and they're one of the worst teams at defending the run right now. So I think this plays right into Dobbs' strength. I'd rather have him than Joe Burrow in my lineup on the other side of the ball, which is nuts, but it's true.
All right, we're getting into running backs right now, Wolf. We got, I think, 37 minutes till kickoff, so we should be able to, if we fly through these, get a lot of questions. Running backs, guy you're higher on, Kyron Williams going against the Eagles. You got him at 8. That's 4 up from the experts. You're starting this guy no matter what. I love this stat that's right under him. Basically, he finished RB 29 in week 3. Other than that, he has not been lower than RB 6. I mean, this is a true workhorse. I mean, like, this guy's the real deal. Wolf's probably not going to have to sell him too much, but anyway, he's on the list. Jaleel McLaughlin, who we have also talked about, who I wrote a piece on, which again, the Wolves and CJ helped me out with a little bit. But RB 26, you like him 6 higher than the experts, and those are your 2 guys. So anyway, why don't you go on them?
Yeah, you said workhorse for Kyron. Most routes, most snaps among running backs, even more than Christian McCaffrey at this point on the year. And honestly, he's not that far away from what McCaffrey's doing. I mean, obviously, after that 50-point day, there's been some distance, but he's the running back 3 in fantasy right now, getting ranked as a fringe RB1 guy. I know I probably don't need to have money, but I've had some 10-team leagues question me about him. And some of the guys that he listed below is just blowing my mind. And I get it. Philly, great front 7, good D-line, but the fact that he has the most routes on the team makes him matchup proof. It doesn't matter if he can't run right up the gut on these teams. And you saw this team, the Philly team, almost score 2 touchdowns to Brian Robinson last week. And this guy, Kyron, has scored 2 touchdowns in 3 of his 4 games so far. So I think there's absolutely high upside here. We've seen it time and time again with McVay finds that guy. It was never Cam Akers, but before him, Todd Gurley. What do you have, like a 27 touchdown season? He loves to run it in the red zone there. So I think Kyron's a great bet to find Van Zone at least once, maybe even twice while hauling in 5-6 balls. Just a no-brainer. To me, it's just more so to highlight the fact that ranked ahead of him right now, DeAndre Swift, Devon Achane, who I love. I get it. Brian Robinson's great matchup tonight. Travis Etienne, though, ahead of him. I mean, what are we talking about? Joe Mixon ahead of him? Come on. James Cook. What are we doing? Like, these guys should not be ahead of Kyron Williams.
And so I agree. I mean, you're starting this guy regardless, though, but you actually do have Etienne as the first guy on your lower list. But real quick, talk about Jaleel McLaughlin, and we'll get into that.
Yeah, I think even if Javonte plays, you can get Jaleel McLaughlin into your lineup. Here, the Jets, yes, a scary pass defense, at least against the receiver position, but very good pass matchup for the running backs. 6th most targets allowed to running backs, 8th most receiving yards allowed to backs. Then if you do that schedule adjusted with fantasy points, they're actually top 5 in both those metrics. 11th most total points to the position, given some of that, and the 5th most rushing yards allowed to running backs as well. And as mentioned, Sean Payton says, I'm a big fan of Jaleel McLaughlin. I'm proud of how he's playing. One of those guys I'm constantly eager to get going. He's constantly eager to learn. He played well. He played really well. And Sean Payton, he's a guy of pride too. This is his hand-picked, undrafted free agent guy that's just thriving. You wrote about him, the all-time leading rusher in NCAA history. The kid just gets it done. 104 yards last week on only 10 touches, 2 touchdowns so far on the year on such minimal usage. Was a preseason monster, the #1 ranked PFF runner in the preseason. Touchdown in every single game, 4 touchdowns across his 3 games. The guy's a playmaker. He's getting put in position to make plays. And even if Javonte is out there, I think McLaughlin's going to out-touch him and out-produce him.
We go to lower. We already touched on 2 of the 3 of these guys. Travis Etienne is ranked by the Wolf at 12, which I actually still think is high. But
I might bump him down. Yeah.
The experts have him at 8. Also, Ramondre Stevenson, I'd say for obvious reasons, going against the Saints. He's RB 25 by the Wolf. That's only 3 spots lower than the experts. And then last but not least, we actually talked about him as well. Miles Sanders at Detroit. You got him at 31. The experts like him at 26. What do you have to say that has not been said yet about those guys, and what do you want to say about Ramondre?
Yeah, Buffalo's sneakily actually been a more of a run funnel than a pass funnel. The worst matchup for quarterbacks, a middling matchup for running backs. But the only time that's really because they gave up 25 points to Devon Achane. They had those couple big runs given to Breece Hall, so they are susceptible to the big play. But Travis Etienne has not been making big plays, at least not like what he was doing last year. He's under 4 yards a clip. He's just getting fed the rock. He's got a good opportunity, good role. He's not doing a ton with it, though. So this is more so in those shallower leagues where I'm getting Etienne versus Kyron. It's Kyron 10 times out of 10. For me, Ramondre Stevenson, speaking of poor yards per carry, 2.7 on the season. He does not look like he has any of the juice we had last year. And now he's only on 10% of the targets on the season so far. He was beefed up with a near 20% target share last year. That's what really helped him out. Plus, we got Zeke mixing in the red zone area. He's seen his snaps go up 3 straight weeks, 40% last week. And this is a bottom 7 matchup for the Saints here. Not a good spot. Derrick Henry with 12.9 in week 1 is the only running back that's ever gone over double digits points against them so far this year. So I do not like Ramondre to get his season back on track, really ever, but it's certainly not in this week. And then Sanders, just know it's a week where you're desperate for starters and so many bye weeks. Bottom 5 matchup for a guy that's not healthy, that was out-snapped last week by Chuba Hubbard, only 4.7 points. Your Chuba Hubbard only put up 7, but that was significantly better, 40 rushing yards compared to 19 last week. I don't think there's any world where I trust Miles Sanders. I'd rather have Chuba Hubbard in my lineup if I had to go to one of these guys, and that tells you shouldn't have either of them in your lineup.
And Chuba Hubbard's actually one of your Hail Marys.
Yeah. So I guess if you really need it, yeah.
Right. Tajay Spears, 24% at Indianapolis. And then Chuba Hubbard, 28% owned, although the Wolves' endorsement of him a second ago was not exactly a ringing one.
It's very lukewarm. But the thing with both these guys, and kind of if I'm desperate for a Hail Mary, especially at the running back position where I have to plug someone in, I really search for those handcuffs with benefits. Something happens to Miles Sanders, that groin just finally gives way for him, and he's out for multiple weeks. Chuba Hubbard will be a top 15 running back as long as he's a 3-down horse. We've seen it before. He's already out snapping him, already producing him these last couple of weeks. At a certain point, it's going to happen for Miles Sanders. That injury is worse. And I'm not trying to sound like I'm rooting for an injury. It's just going to happen. That groin's going to break down, and Chuba Hubbard will have a 3-down back role sooner than later. So when you have these guys that you're tossing in your lineups, who could be better than a handcuff than Tajay Spears? He's going to get you a little bit of receiving work. His most touches of the season coming off of last week with 5 carries, 40 yards, another 3 catches, 4 targets. That's solid 9 opportunities. It's not great, but when we're desperate right now for whatever we can get, and then you have that upside. If something happened to Henry, then you've got an RB1 moving forward on the rest of the season. That's what I look for in my plug-in Hail Marys, especially at the running back position. Guys that could get you something this week, but really, you're also stashing them for the upside if something happened, that contingency upside.
All right, we go to wide receivers. We got half an hour around before kickoff. Garrett Wilson
at
Denver. Obviously, we like all at Denver matchups. You like him at 14. That's really only 2 spots above the experts. Not a huge banner thing right there. Gabe Davis, you also like against Jacksonville as wide receiver 23, 4 better than the experts. What's there to add on either of these guys?
Yeah, Garrett Wilson, I think the Pat Surtain mirage is getting a lot of people nervous about playing him. Zach Wilson certainly makes you nervous, and I understand that completely. We just saw Zach Wilson, though, look actually competent. I'll need to see it a couple games before I actually buy this guy can throw. But, man, we know he could throw. It's just a matter of reading the defenses and giving his guys chances to make plays. He was doing that all day against a solid Chiefs secondary last week. Again, would love to see him repeat it before I fully buy in. But regardless, at least he's funneling all the looks to Garrett Wilson, coming off 14 targets last week, 26% share on the year, 40% of their air yards so far on the year, and 44% first read of the look. So he's just locking in on Garrett Wilson, and Garrett Wilson's good enough to make those plays. And as we alluded to, Pat Surtain used to be a shutdown guy you couldn't go after. He's allowing 114 passer ratings so far on the season. And any matchup he gets moved around and matched up with Demarius Mathis on the other side, 154 passer rating. We know how bad this Broncos team is. I am not worried at all. Wilson will get his. He will get open. I'm just going to want to sit starts about him, and you can't be nervous in this matchup. I think it's going to be beautiful. And Gabe Davis, 3 straight games with a touchdown, wide receiver 15, 35, and 16. I get that it's a little bit boomer busty. He doesn't catch the score. What's he really doing for you? He's catching the scores, and he got a much better matchup this week than Stephon Diggs. Plus, that Jacksonville defense is bottom 3 in pressure rate so far this year. So I think it's going to be Josh Allen in that pocket, bombs away, lighten it up. Too many questions this week on Gabe Davis. Get him in your lineup. Let the blowups continue to happen.
All right, let's talk lower. Deebo Samuel, you like him at 22, which is 7 lower than the experts. That's a pretty decent discrepancy. Also, Pickens against Baltimore, you like him at 34. The experts like him all the way up at 25 for some reason.
Yeah, it's already out that Deebo's not going to be 100%. That makes me very nervous. Wasn't 100% last week. He still ran 81% of the routes and just had 1 target. No, actually 0 targets. Complete and utter decoy. Very real scarecrow risk yet again in this matchup. And even if he is playing and not a scarecrow, it's not a great spot against Dallas. I do really like Brock Purdy, but Ayuk, in the games where Ayuk has made it through the entire time, we just have 1 in 6 points for Deebo Samuel so far on the year. I do not see this as a spot where we want to pepper him into our lineups. I'd be very nervous rolling him out there, to be honest. This week, I'm putting in DJ Moore tonight over Deebo Samuel in a couple leagues where I have both of them. And I'm not too worried about that. We'll see. But George Pickens, ranked as a borderline wide receiver 2 right now. I mean, come on. Kenny Pickett has been such garbage. Baltimore, I know their secondary's been a little banged up, and yet they've still been locking down on teams, getting after quarterbacks at an elite rate so far. And Kenny Pickett has been horrendous against pressure so far. Given that Pickett's coming off a 4-point day, wide receiver 7. These are his finishes on the year. Wide receiver 51, wide receiver 9. He had that 1 huge game with 10 targets. Other than that, wide receiver 39 and 71 afterwards too. So hasn't even sniffed a top 30 finish other than 1 week. I'm not banking on a 25% hit rate in a bad matchup with bad quarterback play. I don't want Pickens in my lineup. I love the player, but I do not like Kenny Pickett. And I hate Matt Canada, who will not use this guy the right way.
All right, we have a million Hail Marys that you have on here, but before we get to them,
I'll fire them all off.
Before we get to them, we got a super chat.
Yeah, well, I don't want to interrupt the flow just because we have this for a clip. So, Mr. Trey Saracinko, I know.
Okay, let me hide the banner, and we'll hit it as soon as you do the wide receiver Hail Marys.
Yeah. So Michael Wilson, 42%. You wrote about him. He's like the least likely to be out there for you, but got the size, has tons of burst, agility, catch radius, all 70th percentile or higher according to Player Profiler. So even though he doesn't have the fastest 40-yard dash, man, this kid for his size can actually move and move really well agility-wise. 7 catches on all 7 targets. He's caught every single target that's come his way. That's going to make him this young quarterback's best friend. 76 yards and 2 scores. So he can get it done in the red zone, intermediate game, plus in 3 of his 4 games. He's had over 20 ADOT on his 16 on the season. So he can go deep. He can get it done over the middle of the field. He can get it done in the red zone. Simply put, the kid can do it everywhere. And he's got a great chemistry right now with Josh Dobbs. His yards per out run lead the team right now, even more than Marquise Brown, and 17% target share last week, continuing every single week to trend upwards in his usage. I love the kid. I want him in all my lineups. I'm +8 ECR and have him as a wide receiver 2, locking him in this week if you have him. Michael Gallup, fresh off 11 catches and 152 across his last 2 weeks. Shootout style game. Definitely has that ability to beat the man coverage. So San Fran, if you're going to beat them, it's through the air. And I think they're going to need to throw with that offense putting up points on the other side. So I like him. We talked about Wandale as well with 29% targets per route run. So I jumped to 65% of the routes last week, and his role is only supposed to grow from here. The training camp MVP of last year. But we just know Daniel Jones loves his slot weapons. He has always peppered it at will. Richie James was a top 12 receiver when he took over that full-time role for Wandale Robinson, who had just had 13 targets, 9 catches, and 100 yards in 3 quarters before getting hurt. So I actually really like Wandale based on what we saw last year in the training camp. And so far this year, he's been the most reliable guy in a very lackluster core. And then I wanted to go even deeper. If you need a desperation deep bomb, Alec Pierce at 2%, Justin Watson for the Chiefs against Minnesota. Both of them have great matchups. Tennessee for Pierce, again, Minnesota. Both big bomb, letting up a ton of them throughout the year. So if you are just pure Hail Mary at your flex and you just want a shot at a deep bomb, I think either of those guys could get it done for you this week.
All right. Before we roll through tight ends, we do have a super chat from Mr.
Yes.
We do have a super chat from Mr. Trace Saracinko. There was $5. Thank you for that. So he's got 3 specific choice questions and then kind of 1 general question. So I'm going to hit you with the specific ones one after another. Full point. This is PPR, Nico or Terry McLaurin. Who do you like?
That's a really tough one. Man, I have a really hard time sitting Nico coming off.
I like Nico for whatever it's worth.
Yeah, 160-yard day, the way we like Stroud right now. I actually don't have my rankings reflecting that, so I'm going to upload those as we talk. But yeah, I prefer Nico in a vacuum tonight over him. Yes.
Okay, Khalil Herbert or Tank Dell?
Ooh, that's a good one.
That one's tough too.
Especially if you're starting, like, if you'd have to start both Texans receivers, I'd say go Khalil Herbert.
Agree completely.
Although I might even go like McLaurin and Tank Dell at that point. Like I might rather balance it out that way. That's a really tricky question, Mr. Trey Saracinko. I have how could you bench Nico Collins though after, a 30-point fantasy day? And really 3 out of his 4 games have been extremely useful, if not dominant. So I love Nico Collins. I love what he's doing. He's playing that big Julio Jones style role, and he's not Julio, but he's not too far away from it either. I'm bumping him right now, even over Calvin Ridley and including Terry McLaurin as well to my wide receiver 17. So I do like Nico. I want him in my lineup, and I'm a little bit worried about Tank Dell. Not super worried long term, but I just think it's clear like Nico Collins, he's got a more extensive track record here. And we talked about Khalil Herbert, 77% of the snaps, 65% of the routes, 78% of running back carries. The usage has been there. Washington's not a terrifying defense by any means. So, yeah, I think I go Khalil Herbert and Nico Collins for both of those.
All right, Curtis Samuels or Josh Downs? Downs getting a little grimy.
Curtis Samuel at that point, he saw 8 to 9 targets last week. I know you're getting in the grind there, but I actually I like him as a sleeper stream tonight. The Bears giving up so many points to every position, 5th most to wide receivers, 2nd most to quarterbacks. He's involved as a ball carrier, got that little jet sweep on the goal line last week. They're just using him kind of in that like McKinnon hybrid type role, and he's doing pretty solid with it. I like Curtis Samuel. If you're that desperate, you're playing in that type of grind, I'd go Curtis Samuel.
All right, last one, a little more of a general question. Thoughts on Cole Kmet tonight?
Is that – that's in there too? He's okay. He's a tight end. He had a boom last week, but that was against Denver. And I would want to know who your other option is.
Right.
He's in my top 12. He's right there at tight end 12, but I'd rather have Zach Ertz. I like Dalton Kincaid more. I like Jake Ferguson more. So I'm not all in on going in on Komet after that 1 week blow up. I think that was more of a product of the Broncos.
All right, Wolf, let's drive through the tight ends. Higher, Dalton Kincaid against Jacksonville. You like him at 9. Experts like him at 13, so a little bit out of the top 12.
Yeah, we've seen him start to take over that role from Dawson Knox. Slowly but surely, it's starting to happen. I know the production hasn't quite followed yet, but we're getting more routes, more snaps, better ADOT. I guess his ADOT still hasn't really taken off. They're using him right now at like a 2.53. So really just kind of dink and dunk with him. But, man, he's got the athleticism. He was one of the best receivers, not even as a tight end, of the entire class this one. So this is a great spot to have the breakout game. Jacksonville's worst corner is their slot corner, which is where we have Dalton Kincaid locked in right now. His snaps have really been almost exclusively 79% have been coming out of that slot there. So I think there's a ton of upside for Dalton Kincaid to light it up this week. He's my tight end 9 for the week. I think this could be his coming out party. And then we look forward as a tight end 1, very rare tight end 1 this year too, that you can just lock in moving forward.
All right, we got Darren Waller. You like him at 10. The experts somehow like him at 5. We've already given this guy a bunch of airtime. Do you have anything else to add?
5, 4, and 4. He has 1 11-point day with the tight end 4 there. Otherwise, he's been outside your top 20 tight ends in 3 of 4 games. He's kind of feeling like a Kyle Pitts mirage.
I was just going to make a Kyle Pitts comment.
So I really his ceiling's 11 points so far on the year. I have no intention to get this guy in my lineup if I don't have to. I'd rather have Jake Ferguson, Kincaid, some of these other guys we've talked about, Zach Ertz.
Before we get into Hail Marys, I do think it's worth noting Darren Waller is the guy who managed to knock Kyle Pitts out of the lower segment for the first time.
I'm still -5 on Kyle Pitts.
I'm just saying, like, it was the Kyle Pitts show all year. Darren Waller has been so bad that he knocked the champ off for like a week.
Indeed.
Anyway, Hail Marys, Luke Musgrave, you talked about him, how you like him. He's 25% owned. He's going at the Raiders. And Hayden Hurst at the Lions, only 14% owned.
Yeah, great route rate for Luke Musgrave. Great ADOT for Luke Musgrave. Multiple weeks where he's just barely missed 40 to 50-yard bombs. This could be where it all comes together. It's those schedule-adjusted points we were talking about where the Broncos are giving up, plus 92.4% to the running backs. Las Vegas is at the top for tight ends with plus 152% more points allowed to tight ends, which is just insane that they're that much better in that worst against the position. So Monday Night Football, he's cleared from concussion protocol, only 25% rostered. I love him. Hayden Hurst, much more of that dart throw that you're hoping to find lightning in a bottle. He had that huge week 1, done nothing since then. Ultimately that 13-point day was a tight end 2, huge week 1, but seriously, that was literally the tight end 2. After that, it's 4, 2, and 1. So you're really hoping for a Hail Mary there. But ultimately, Detroit, second most points allowed to the tight end position as well on the year. So ultimately, maybe this is where he gets it done. We know dink and dunk is the Bryce Young nature. So yeah, I guess that's a desperation. If Musgrave's not out there, you can pivot to Hayden Hurst.
All right, Wolf, we're about 18 minutes or so from kickoff. Before we hit the mailbag, Omar F. just sent us $5, and he wants to know, I need one between Pierce, Ramondre, and Khalil Herbert. I'm definitely going Herbert there for whatever it's worth. It's full PPR. He has Kyron as a running back 1, Olave and Gabe Davis in his 2 flex spots. Those are nice choices to have, but I would go Herbert here. How about you?
Yeah, I'm absolutely going Herbert over the other 2. Again, just to reiterate, 77% of the snaps, 65% of the routes, 78% of the running back carries. Looking damn good with the volume. He finally has the role we've been clamoring for. Why would we not use him as he gets that? The only risk is that they completely get game flowed out, and Roshan is getting those garbage time dump offs. And yeah, I'd keep the flex spot the same way, Gabe Davis over any of the other 2 running backs. I don't trust Dameon Pierce or Ramondre. Pierce has looked okay lately, but even in the perfect game flow situations, he still hasn't really been lighting the world on fire. So I don't want either of those other 2 on my lineup.
All right, we're going to hit the mailbag. How many questions we got, Wolf? Can you see it?
It looks like about like 60 or so,
okay.
Less than usual, but I think I should rapid fire this.
I was going to say, let's, we're getting up on 8 o'clock. Why don't you rapid fire? And if I have something I want to add, I'll jump in.
Let's do it. And Wolfpack, as we rapid fire through these, please do consider that thumbs up button. Thank you so much for spending your Thursday night for me. We'll try to get live. I know we're 10 minutes late tonight. We'll start to try to get a little earlier. Maybe we even can manage 6:30 moving forward. It was my fault tonight. I had a late night at school, so I had to get a little later tonight. But we want to make sure we can give you some time for your answers. And I know we've been up against it these last couple of weeks. So my apologies. We'll try to figure out how we can do this better moving forward. No more time to waste. So let's go. Wolfpack Kava, because Muth from Pitt is hurt. So who should you go? Okonkwo, Conklin, or Schultz? I'm going to go Schultz there just with the way that Texans offense is clicking as a pass game. I have no real faith in Okonkwo. Conklin's the next closest. The matchups there, the target share has been there. I just don't know. It's Conklin. It's Zach Wilson. I'd rather go with, CJ Stroud's boy than Zach Wilson's for sure. Favorite kind of chips? Flamin' Hot Cheetos is a nice choice there, Karana.
I'm going to say Cool Ranch Doritos.
Or Cool Ranch is great. Doritos in general are definitely the top of the game. I prefer the purple, sweet chili Doritos.
The sweet chili, they're pretty good. Yeah,
they're phenomenal. And the combo of Cool Ranch and sweet chili together.
Oh God.
Yes, so good.
Sign me up.
If you have them both at once, chef's kiss. Pick two. Addison, Flowers, Pierce, or Warren. I'm going to go Flowers is definitely my favorite here. And I don't really love any of the other three here, Krana. I might go Addison. I think that game, the Vikings versus the Chiefs has a bit of shootout potential there. As talked about with Dameon Pierce, he's game flow dependent and still hasn't even been good when the game flow has been on his side. So I'm going Flowers and Addison there with the PPR settings as well. They got to elevate his role in a game like this. Walker on a bye. It is tough. Pirine, D. Cook. Oh, God. Murray and Hubbard. You should chug a beer. Yes, 100% Krana. I will tell you that. I honestly think I go Hubbard. He's the best shot at volume of this bag.
I can't believe it.
If Javonte's ruled out, then I do think I pivot to Pirine. If Javonte's 100% out. But if Javonte's in, you can't go Pirine there. So Hubbard, assuming Javonte's in.
Choices.
Yeah, not great. This is what I was talking about, Truth. It's an ugly week with these buys this week. Myers, Herbert, and Watson, you got a flex one. Oh, it comes down to Herbert and Watson for me. Herbert's the floor play. Watson's the ceiling. You heard me talk about. I think this is Watson's coming out party on Monday Night Football. So I'm going Watson. Would you go Watson or Herbert here, Truth?
I would be inclined to lean Herbert, but I completely can understand the Watson take.
Yeah, CJ always says go with the running back. I think I'm going Watson. I think this is a blow-up spot for him against the Raiders' bad secondary. Chrono with one last one. Stevenson or Robinson? Definitely Brian Robinson. That one's not even close. That's too easy.
Absolutely.
It is 110 Brian Robinson. And then for your streamer, I would go Stroud over all those other guys there for sure. And thank you for always being our hype food man.
Yeah,
I love that. Should you play Howell or hold out for Stafford? Ooh, that's a really good one there, Omar. Honestly, if you knew you were going to get Stafford, I really like him now that we have Kupp back. He's had 300 yards in every game. The touchdowns just haven't been there quite yet, but he threw 40 touchdowns just 2 seasons ago, and he's slinging it. I do think I like Stafford more in a vacuum, but it's not a guarantee you're going to get him. I would just probably roll out Howell because I feel great about them both. They're both right around my top 12 here. So I would just go Howell there for sure. And Jose, thank you for answering some other questions in there for me while people were waiting for us to get there. Emily Collier, thoughts on Jahan Dotson? Again, it depends on your options. I like that he had 9 targets and a touchdown last week. I hate how his other 3 games have been complete duds, though. I would need to know who else you're considering. You could play him, though. It is a bad secondary. The Bears certainly are giving up a ton of points. This could be the coming out party for him. But it really depends on your other options. I have him as like a fringe wide receiver 3 right now. So let me know, Emily, who else you're considering.
That's a meal. That's a meal.
A meal. Yeah.
To be clear.
My fault. Second most points, 1 and 3. Oof, tails all the time. We do fight on, Charlie. I hate to hear that. I'm sorry to hear. It's been such a tough year for you. Play better defense, bro. That sucks. I'm sorry, man. That does suck. Bucks D or Bills? No way. Got to go Bills. And we're just stashing. I don't even know rushing yard. I'm not looking ahead to next week's defense. I love that you are, but I'm as crazy as I am. I'm not that crazy. Charlie Preble. Hey, it's been a while since we've seen the Prebs here. Great to see you, Charlie. Maybe you haven't here, but I haven't noticed your name. I'm happy you're back. I'm in a rough spot having to play Tutu. Tutu's not that bad.
Yeah, Tutu's all right.
PK and Cooper, that's not bad. I'd rather play Tutu over Pickens. I'm with you there. You guys are awesome. Like the video. Hey, thank you for that rushing yard. Indeed, if you guys are willing to, that thumbs up. It really does help us grow and get out to more people.
Subscribe.
The pack, pushing for 5K. Maybe we'll hit it this year. I know it's ambitious. I would love to, though. You guys could mean the world if you help us out get there. And only if you like the content, of course, though. Justin Vetter, what's up, fellas? Full PPR. Start Khalil or go with Gibbs. I like Khalil over Gibbs. Until we see Gibbs getting more involved, I don't want to trust him as talented as he is. It's Montgomery's backfield for now. And I am bumping up right now Matthew Stafford just above Sam Howell. Given that Kupp is back, him and Nakua. I mean, that offense could be dangerous.
This is real-time, behind-the-scenes adjustments you guys are seeing.
That's what I love about doing these shows, though. You guys really make me challenge my own rankings, make me think it through. So, selfishly, I know we're doing this for you, but you do help me refine my rankings. And sometimes it's not the right decision, but I want to make sure my rankings reflect what I'm giving you guys. Apex, what's up? It has been a minute. Great to see you. Injuries are hitting the receivers. You got bye as well. Jaden Reed or someone like Rashee Rice, Lazard, or Woods. Ooh, we're in tough spots. Of this list, I actually like Rashee Rice the most. Similar to what my running back argument was, he's growing in a role with Mahomes right now. So, you could use him just because of that. Plus, if he becomes that full-time guy of anybody in this receiving core, he was the one, of course, Travis Kelce, but I'm talking strictly receiver. Rashee Rice, he's showing way more juice than anyone there. Could see by midseason him being an every down guy, Mahomes' go-to wide receiver here. So of all these guys, I think he has the best chance to evolve into more, and they're all similarly ranked this week anyways. So go with the guy with the most long tail upside, and that's Rashee Rice to me. Howell or Jimmy G for KJ Frederick. I'm definitely going Sam Howell there. Yeah. That one's not really close for me. Trade Hawk for Kamara. Other running backs are Eckler, Cook, White, Gainwell. I mean, it's such an edge to have Hawk, the number one tight end right now. Your running backs are pretty bad, though. If Cook is James Cook, then you're good, Ashwin. You're in a really bad spot. So if it's James Cook, I say no. You hold Hawk. You don't need Kamara if that's James Cook. Otherwise, if that's Dalvin Cook, yeah, I'd be a little bit worried. I might make that. Yeah. Sup, fellas? Pick one, half PPR. Dotson, Wandale, Roshan. I would go Dotson of this group. Yep, and that's where you're thinking too, Andres. You're playing Howell, so stack them up. I know it's nerve-wracking, but if there's ever a defense to play three guys against, it's this awful, awful Bears defense. So I think, Andre, stack them up, have yourself a Thursday night bonanza. Good luck, baby. Terry, yeah, pretty much a must-start for me, Danzel. Top 20 wide receiver is starting in most leagues. It would depend on your other options. Lomi, what's up? DJ Moore or Collins? I'm going Nico Collins for sure there. I like DJ Moore than I do, but Nico Collins got to play right now. For running back 2, it's Kyron, and I love Brian Robinson tonight.
Definitely Kyron.
And I would go Brian Robinson in the flex there. So you go Brian Robinson because I love Brian Robinson this week.
Absolutely.
But put Brian Robinson at running back 2 just in case Kyron's ruled out or something crazy happens. You want to have that flexibility. All right, there. Bijan and Kyron are my running backs. Love that. Roshan, Tajay, Miller, Justice, Latavius, and Eli Mitchell are pick up 2. I would go Tajay as a stash for 100%. I don't even know off the top of my head who Miller is. I'd go Roshan and Tajay because Mitchell's probably not playing this week, and he could lose that handcuff job soon. Who's Miller? I don't even know.
I'll figure it out.
Full PPR, QB, stick with Fields or play Dobbs. I would go Fields over Dobbs. I like Dobbs if you're desperate for a streamer, but if Fields coming off that big game, I would roll with him, even though it is a little bit safer to go with Dobbs, to be honest. I would go Fields.
He's totally talking about Kendre Miller, I think.
Oh, yeah. Fuck Kendre Miller. No way.
Yeah. Exactly.
So pardon my language. But, I'm definitely going those first 2 for you. And then running back 2, Pierce or Warren. I guess Pierce, because he's been trending the right way. This offense is trending the right way. And then Devonta Smith, Garrett Wilson, Collins, or Ayuk. Shoosh. If those are your running back 2s, Robert, you got to make a move here when you're only starting one of those 4 receivers.
I mean, you got 4.
You got to unload some of that. You got to upgrade your running back position by a mile. Out of all these guys, I'm going Devonta Smith, but man, that's going to be a headache for you all year. Ayuk has a right claim. Collins, they all have good claims right there. So I'd have a hard time sifting through that every
Me too.
So definitely try to consolidate and make a move for a running back. Roshan or Jameson, half PPR. I'd go. I don't really like anything about Roshan, so I would probably say Jameson here. I would also if Amon's playing, then it makes it a little riskier here, DJ Johnson. But we could find another stash on Sunday. I don't think Roshan's bringing much to the table at all tonight. It was clearly the Kyron Willie or Khalil Herbert last time. Hi, Wolf and Truth. Traded King Henry for Eckler in the PPR leagues. I love the move, Jose. I think moving forward, Eckler's going to have a huge role in there. And King Henry had that blow up. I think he sold high. He's got a bigger injury risk the rest of the year, in my opinion. Although, we've already seen Eckler get hurt, so maybe not. And would you trade Jalen Warren for Mike Wilson? I would. I love Michael Wilson. I really do.
I just want to say it might be the best. It might be the right move to trade Henry for Eckler, but don't be disrespecting King Henry on this show.
I know. I love the King, but I think Eckler, with no Mike Williams, he's going to be such a cog. And whereas we've seen King Henry get game flowed for Tajay Spears when they're down, Eckler is going to be in all situations.
I think you're right.
Roshan or Tajay, I would go Tajay there. Better long-term and just short-term is similar. Laporta or Komet, definitely Laporta there, Juan Pen. You're not even close. What's up, Nicola? Hope all is well. Same with you. After playing Debo, yeah, that was bad. I need to know who here are the other options. Hopkins, Judy, or Tutu. Oof. Let's see how banged up Debo is, what the reports are coming into Sunday. I still kind of lean Debo over these guys, but Hopkins would be my next man up. And if you don't want to go back-to-back, Nicola, I understand completely. I would go Hopkins. Good matchup, bad Indianapolis secondary there. Sam Laporta or Kittle. Oh, Giuseppe, that's a tough one. I like Laporta, honestly. Higher ceiling there. Unless Debo's out. If Debo's out, then Kittle becomes a smash play. 8-man. I can't read this question. I have no idea what's going on. I think you're just kind of telling us your team, and it looks like a really good team, but I got questions here. Kind of answer. Motive. Half PPR. Pittman, McLaurin, Kyron. You need 2. Kyron's my lock. And then I like Pittman against Tennessee, the horrible secondary there. And I really do like McLaurin tonight, Motive. You just got 3 really good options. That's really tough.
I don't understand. I fundamentally don't understand why Kyron is in so many of these questions.
Well, that's why I put him in higher, lower Hail Mary truth. I told you I was getting questions about him all week. So I felt like I had to just state these guys 2 touchdowns in 3 out of 4 games. I know the Eagles are a scary matchup on paper, but he's so involved as a pass catcher. Most routes, most snaps. You don't bench a roll like that.
He's finished below running back. He finished below running back 6 one time. One running back 6.
And it was against, it's crazy. And he 20 points against San Fran. You're worried about the Eagles. No, if he can do it against San Fran, he can do it to the Eagles too.
Like if you have a team where this guy's not an automatic start, like you might as well just have the trophy handed to you right now. So anyway, it's crazy. That's my rant. Sorry.
Starting John O. Smith in a league, yeah, that sucks, Omar. Sorry to hear it. There's got to be another option. Please let me know who else is out there. Start Dotson over Stevenson. Oh, TN, I don't like Stevenson at all. Honestly, I'd probably go for it. At least you have the upside of a long bomb touchdown with Dotson. Stevenson's doing garbage. Wolf Truth and your boundless wisdom. Could you kindly select? I love Magic Mike. Could you kindly select 2 players for me?
This one's easy.
Mixon, K. Williams. Oh, it's Williams.
Kyron and Montgomery.
Yeah, that's an easy one. We don't need boundless wisdom to answer that one.
I'm sorry, I talked over you. Did you say the same thing?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, okay. It's easy. Truth, I'm with you. So we don't need boundless wisdom for that. Should I start Goff, Howell, or Stafford? I like Stafford, Isaac. I really do. I bumped up Stafford. I still have him below Goff, which I don't agree with anymore. So I'm going to tell you, I like Stafford. As long as Kupp's in there, I'm going Stafford. I already have him above Howell. So I'm going to keep bumping it up. The 300 yards, I think in every game, maybe other than one, and the touchdowns will come. Now that Cooper Kupp's there, the touchdowns will come, baby. Sarah Riley, Brian Robinson, Nakua, or Ayuk. Oh, it's Puka. We got to go Puka. I love Brian Robinson, too, this week. I wonder who your other running backs are, but I'm not benching Puka.
She said right there her other running backs were Mixon and James Cook.
I go Robinson over either of those guys.
Sarah's always got really good teams. Like
what a team, right? But Sarah, you got to put Robinson in tonight. We can figure out which other running back you want to start. You have to have Robinson in against Chicago. They're even worse than Denver against running back, which is impossible. So you get Robinson in, and we'll figure out the rest. But you're definitely playing Nakua, and Ayuk as well. Like, good Lord, what a team!
Get him in now. Like, it's 3 minutes.
Get Robinson in now. That's the one that you have to decide. Get Robinson in over Mixon, and then we can figure out if we want Mixon or Cook on Sunday. Got a bit of a tricky start for your 6-man. Achane, Mostert, and Connor. I would go Achane over all those guys. And I would go Achane over Nico, but that's really close right there for sure. Lomi, Pittman, and for Brian Robinson and DJ Moore. I'd rather have Robinson and DJ Moore there.
No, me too.
I don't think that one's very close for me. Pittman's not the level of receiver that's moving that needle for me. Who are you starting between Howell, Lawrence, and Jones? That's definitely Howell for me, Josh. Good to see you, Josh Rosenbaum. Love you. Good to see you, brother. DJ Moore, Breece Hall, Christian Watson, sit 1. I'm sitting DJ Moore. I think I might actually sit Christian Watson there. That's close. It's Christian. I'm playing Breece no matter what. DJ versus Christian Watson, that's tricky.
Breece is the lock. Christian Watson to me, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it's a tough one. But let's plant some trees. At least play Breece. Eddie Sanchez, Aaron Jones questionable. No, because if Jonathan Taylor's playing, Zach Moss is nothing if Jonathan Taylor plays, which he is. Do you like Tajay more than Akers for Hail Mary? XY Zipper, I think I'd like Akers more. He got the red zone snaps last week. He could fall into the end zone there. I love them both as stashes, though, to be honest. Both good offenses that they could end up getting the wheels at any point. Not really good offense, good run game for Tajay. Howell or Dobbs, I'm going Howell there. Joe Santo. Apology, gents, I'm late, but you okay with Love over Fields this week? I'm okay with it. I think I'd go Fields myself, but I'm okay if that's what you're feeling. That's how you want to go. Should I trade Mostert, Najee, and Tank Dell for Rashad White, Addison, and Jameson? It's a bunch of equal kind of things, and I don't love any of them. If I had to take a side, I'd probably – I don't know. I don't love any of that. I really honestly don't like any of it.
I like the top side more.
I guess, but Mostert seems to be trending down. If Jameson, Williams, and Addison hit their ceiling, they're the best play there, but that's two big ifs there. Rob Spears, Rashad Rice, or Akers to activate JT. Probably Rice for me there, Tunes. Yep. And I really like Rice too, so that tells you, I like those other two options a lot. Derrick Henry and Tua for Ramondre and Richardson. I'd rather have Derrick Henry and Tua. That one's not really close for me.
Absolutely.
Fletcher Cox. I think that's from my Holy Cross League, if I'm not mistaken. Indy D or Washington D. I'm going Washington D against Chicago, baby. Fire them up. Am I okay to start Kupp, Puka, and Kyron? West C, fire up all your Rams. This offense is concentrated. It's high-performing, big pies, all going to the bunch of good nows. I would not bench any of those guys for Javonte.
I wouldn't even think about it.
Steal this year. I got Achane for Moss. Oh, that's a steal and a half. What a move from our guy, Pebble. You'll love to see it, Prebz, and I'm so happy to see you. I guess, Giuseppe, since you're an everyday guy, we'll give you this one. Drop pits for Musgrave or for Ertz, not in a dynasty league. No way. No. For a 1 week start this week, yeah, but not in the dynasty league. Pitts, Musgrave both have way much long tail upside. Giuseppe, that shouldn't be a question. Ertz is on maybe his last year at best. For dynasty, you've got to side with talent and long-term upside even more. So that's a bad question, Giuseppe. I love you, but come on. Jameson, if I'm on Raw, yeah, absolutely. Nikki Blends. You can do that. And got a toughie for Omar. We got to give our last, Omar's our guy. He always supports the show. And fucking Tunes, fine. Tunes, you're the last question I'm answering, though. Etienne, Pollard, Aaron Jones, Kyron, and Breece Hall. You got to sit one.
Probably Aaron Jones.
It's not Pollard. Yeah, it's probably Aaron Jones, given that risk of re-aggravating something or limited work after last week. He's the riskiest of this bunch. It's Aaron Jones or Breece Hall who I bench, but I'm having a hard time sitting.
If you answer this question fast, we could actually be done by kickoff.
And if JT plays, who is my flex? Dell or Judy? If I lean Dell. So is JT part of that question? I would go Dell over Judy. I'll tell you that. If it's JT versus those two, I might go JT. I mean, it's your guy. You've been waiting for him. Unleash the horse, baby. But yeah. All righty, Wolfpack. That wraps us up. We're time for kickoff. Love to see it. Thank you so much for your support of the show. On the way out, the thumbs up button would mean the world. A sub if you're new around here. We didn't pull in David. I feel bad. He just signed off. I'm like, oh, fuck. We didn't even pull up David. My fault, David. We should, if David wants to come back for a call in, I'm happy to answer his question. I just completely forgot because he moderates for us. So I'm just like, I feel like he's part of the squad now. So I always forget he probably has questions too. So David, if you did have questions, you wanted to call in, and you're still listening, my man, please do come back. I didn't want to ignore you. Truth, if you want to run, I'll give David a couple minutes while I do the send off here. Good luck, everybody, though. We hope we made the right calls for you. Get what you need in week 5. I'll be live again with my man CJ at 10:45. Truth will be back, 7:45-ish on Sunday for your recap show. Until then, in a world of fancy sheep, guys, be the wolf. Later, guys.
Later.
I got to text David. I feel bad.